Hello Horror Hounds. We popped our collective Choose My Reviews cherry with Dentist 1 and 2, so if you've seen that I hope you enjoy that. But this time round, as voted for by Alex Eventhal, Villano 5, Black Phillip and Frank the Vamp, we're going to be wallowing in the glorious neon New York sleaze of Maniac Cop 1 and 2. Both these films are directed by William Lustig. More interestingly for me, more of a touch point, they're produced and more importantly written by Larry Cohen, who we've come across on this channel before. Previously teamed up with one of his go-to actors, Michael Moriarty, in the bizarre A Return to Salem's Lot and the brilliantly bonkers monster movie Q, the Winged Serpent. Maniac Cop joins his oeuvre of sort of oddball, cheap, but never dull genre offerings. And I must admit, I watched one night and the other the next night. I got a real kick out of watching these proper old school genre filmmaking. Now, for me, one of the joys of Maniac Cop and its sequel, we're not going to touch on Maniac Cop 3, because it's just not really worth it. But one of the joys of these is the seedy, squalid New York that it's set in, that doesn't exist anymore, maybe never really existed. My American friends can tell me whether that's the case, but this film opens up with a woman walking the dark streets of New York, and it instantly took me back to my childhood. And I'll be honest, the opening credits of The Equalizer with the Edward Woodward. So I was back there on a Saturday or Sunday evening watching The Equalizer. Later on, the car chases with real cars and real stunt drivers and no CGI stunts and crashes and stuff like that reminded me again. It took me back to sort of Starsky and Hutch style car chases and the like. So there is a sort of high. I wouldn't call it a nostalgia quotient because the films don't play on nostalgia, but I became nostalgic for a type of filmmaking that we don't see anymore. Anyone who knows these films already knows the setup of it. Matt Cordell was a wronged cop sent to Sing Sing and attacked there, presumed dead, but now back in uniform on the streets and out for revenge, a rather loosely defined revenge. Cordell doesn't really have much of a focus in these two films. He will pretty much kill anyone on a whim with a view to getting the main prize, you know, the mayors, the commissioners, people like that, complicit in sending him to prison. But along the way, he really doesn't seem to care about whether he kills innocent victims and befriends serial killers, only to sort of turn his back on them at the end. There's no real moral compass with Matt Cordell here. He becomes more Jason-like in the second film, more Friday the 13th, but where Jason's sort of very straight down the line and who will kill anyone. There's either, I'm not quite sure, there's either more or less going on with Cordell. It's probably easy to project more onto him because he's inconsistent, but it probably reflects the fact that there was less script development actually going on. So the kills just happen because kills need to happen. The setup of you being in trouble, running for your life from your would-be killers, rapists, smugglers, whatever, and you see a cop in uniform when you run towards what you think is safety and you're running towards your ultimate doom. It's played with at the start, and then after that, apart from one excellent scene where a woman is pulled over by a cop and gets so flustered, assuming it's the Maniac Cop, that she blows the cop away. We kind of then, in both movies, get told that there's no law and order on the streets. It's a bloodbath. No one goes to the cops. No one trusts the cops. People run from the cops or shoot if they see a cop. We're sort of told that aspect of it when both films devolve fairly quickly into sort of hard-boiled cop noir detective staples. Your Bruce Campbell as the younger, doesn't exactly play by the books cop who's fingered for the Maniac Cop murders. Tom, always a cop, Atkins as a cop in this, with his collar turned up and the cigarettes, and one ill-advised woolen jacket at some point, blame the times, and then in the sequel, the glorious Robert Davi as the hard-boiled gumshoe detective who doesn't want to, who shoots his perps because taking them in would be too much paperwork, and you know it's all there, and having to go for the psych eval and not, you know, not treating the cop psychologist. You're not a real cop. You know you don't know what it's like on the streets and blah blah blah. And then they get on the case together, and he earns a grudging respect for her. We've seen it all. It's in fucking the Lethal Weapon movies. That's all here. One thing I do want to touch upon in the first one, Maniac Cop, because it is bad, but it is hilariously bad, is apart from Tom Always a Cop Atkins boozing and shooting his way through this film, which is glorious to behold, we've got Bruce Campbell as well in an early role. Also a sort of blink and you miss cameo by Sam Raimi, it's worth mentioning, and Richard Shaft Roundtree as the police commissioner. So you know, this is a movie that knows its genre DNA and is absolutely reveling in it. But Bruce Campbell's love interest and fellow police officer working on Vice is a character called Teresa, played by Laurie Langdon. And let me see, there she is. There's Bruce, and there she is. Okay, she's working on Vice, and she's an experienced cop. And then she becomes a scream factory, screaming and running away from the Maniac Cop. And then once he's left, she becomes all hard-bitten again and starts ordering all the cops around, and jumps into the car, and she's loading up the shotgun and you know, talking all ballsy about how she can handle the shotgun and stuff like that. Never mind the fact that she's then in the scene holding the shotgun, pointing towards the head of the driver after you've just seen her loading it in. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's kind of worth it for the absolutely glorious scene where she gets brought in, arrested, and then put in the custody of, with the best will in the world, without getting down to the levels of dwarfism, the shortest police officer you will ever see in your entire life. And I spent the entirety of their 5-minute scene together commenting to my other half on, he's so tiny. Why? It's so bizarre. She's in flats and he's even shorter than her. And all came together when it became apparent that what was to happen when she was handcuffed to this police officer was that Cordell would stab him, kill him, and she would have to drag the corpse of the police officer she was handcuffed to through the police station to get away from Cordell. And it suddenly became apparent that they had to cast someone small enough for her to be able to drag across the floor. Maniac Cop 2 ramps everything up in the sequel, set an indeterminate period of time after the end of the first movie, depending on lines of dialogue that you hear, either a couple of days, maybe some weeks, potentially a month or so, or given the fact that a big event in this movie happened around the St. Patrick's Day parade in March, and towards the start of this movie, the new police commissioner is putting up his Christmas tree, then we're talking possibly 8 or 9 months. Got to talk about the stunt work. The stunt work in the first film is great. The stunt work in Maniac Cop 2 is off the chart great. There's a car chase scene where the cops being chased, their car loses both left-hand side tyres. They get blown out, and the car's driving on its rims with sparks flying everywhere. For one, someone is actually doing that. It's really happening when you're looking at a car that's driving on its fucking rims. And that must be really hard to drive, let alone drive in a chase where another car is sort of it keeps shunting you. Some other dude in a scene designed to introduce Robert Davi's character. The scene opens with outside a tenement building. Some stunt guy comes out of, I think it's like the third, it feels like the third story, out of the window onto the roof of a van parked outside, off the roof and down onto the concrete. And that is some dude jumping out of a fucking window onto the roof of a van and off the roof of a van onto the concrete. Then to get up and act like he's shot by Robert Davi's character who's come around the back of the building. It's amazing. We rewound it and watched it a couple of times because the stunt is just absolutely superb. There's some fire stunt work where Matt Cordell's character is set alight, but then he fights with other characters who they themselves get set alight. A couple of those stuntmen on fire go out of a fucking window and down onto obviously crash mats and stuff like that. But that's still out of a window down another 3 flights whilst on fire. By this point, you're just applauding and wishing that people still kind of made films like this again. It's sort of insane. It's sort of insane the stunts that are in this film, that are just simple, honest to goodness stunt people doing the stunt work that they always used to do, that now you really don't see it anymore. So all in all, for some sleazy, bloody sort of B-movie genre fun, Maniac Cop 1 and 2 really hits the spot. For a second or third tier slasher killer, you know, below obviously you've got your royalty of your Freddy, Jason, Michael, and then your Pinheads and your Chuckies. And Matt Cordell really is I think a really strong lower tier killer in this. You can argue as the day is long whether he's even more so than with Jason, where after a certain point Jason lives. It's fairly obvious that he's a fucking zombie. The question is very moot and open with this, probably because Larry Cohen didn't have enough time to decide whether he wanted Matt Cordell to still be alive and just able to take an enormous amount of punishment or back from the dead. His look changes. He becomes much more zombified in this one, but that was just a case of more money rather than an inconsistency. I like the idea that he's not a zombie in both of these films. I think by the time 3 rolls round, he kind of is a zombie. I think he's voodoo controlled as well, which is a strange direction to go in, but we'll leave that to one side. So the rumour is that Nicholas Winding Refn, he of Drive and Neon Demon, is a big fan of these movies and is trying to get a remake in place. For him to direct. Refn knows how to shoot neon and would undoubtedly be a gorgeous looking movie. I think one of the reasons a Maniac Cop movie now would really work, and there's absolutely no getting around the current climate of I Can't Breathe and Black Lives Matter and the general mistrust of the police, is there's a whole area of this story which is how the public act and react towards the police force, that could be mined and really should be mined. And you can show bad cops in this movie, and you can show great cops in this movie who do a really difficult job day in, day out, and put their lives on the line for all of the rest of us. And you can be nuanced about it, and you can have the kills and the thrills and the added Brucey bonus of actually having something to say, some sort of commentary as well. I think if the remake goes ahead and it sidesteps those issues, then there's absolutely no point whatsoever in making it. However, there is an opportunity to make an excellent genre movie about a maniac cop that could thrill us, could please bring back the real stunts, real actual stunt work. Nicholas, if you're watching this, I know he's not watching this. Actual stunt work, make it look as beautiful as you can. Make Matt Cordell as menacing as you possibly can. Yes, serve the genre roots of the Maniac Cop, but say something with the movie as well. Wouldn't that be fucking great? Wouldn't that be so odd if the fucking Maniac Cop came back to hold a mirror to our current society? I mean, stranger things have happened this year.